Okay, so the deal here is Joe Sadronsky is kind of the lead teacher, and there are going to be five, I think it's like one other middle school teacher and four uh, high school teachers from her district are going to kind of form a group, meet a few times this spring, kind of test writing partners out. Unclear terribly exactly how that's going to go. But she thought that we could do something with uh, writing partners around open letters because we've done that before,
Hmm.
right? Um, and wait, I'm trying to get back to myself. So here's some of the thinking that she and I have done, and I'll say this, and I want to try to figure this out. She's there is over time I've gotten more convinced that students need to understand what's in, and teachers do, what's in a writing partner, right? And so using a them doesn't work for
Mm.
that. And David, this is good for us to think about for talking on Thursday with LDC too, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay, so here's where I am in this thinking, and I know I'm all over the place here, but okay. So the AI squad now has, I've changed one out, by the way. And so let me just describe them. And if you scroll, if you hover across each of these, there is a brief introduction to what they do, worth knowing. But the idea here is that students would only have these five, right? And the, what the theme finder does is it does that thing where it selects everything and then decides um, what theme you might want to, and the everything can be anything, it can be your notes. Chris, in your case, it could be all of the summaries they've written. They would
Uh-huh.
collect those together and paste them into one document, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I, so the text to image prompt writer, we kind of understand. The improv is also a brainstorming tool, I think. The improv teammate begins to move toward composing. The background knowledge teammate moves toward revision, and then the voice and audience one does too. Um, I'll set all this up, and then you can slow me down and say, wait, let's look at that better. Um, in once you, so the idea is that you would only have those five for a while. I don't
Okay.
know how long. Um, and we'd have to take some of your students out of some groups they're in already if to make that sensible. And so I'm asking for pushback and so please interrupt me. The idea is that you two things. One is you get to know those five pretty well in different circumstances as you're writing, through a process. The other is that when you make your own, it opens up a space to make your own because we don't, they may not meet your needs.
Hmm.
Um, now, Jill is leans in on making your own, right?
Hmm.
I looked at Grace's earlier, and she has the basic ones, and then she has about seven that she made herself, right? So just kind of trying to lay out the field here.
Mm.
Um, and Chris, you created last year a concision writing partner. Do you remember that one?
Vaguely, yeah.
It teaches kids how to use subordinate clauses.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
It it's still here. You can get to it, um, but it seemed to me that wasn't. Anyway, I for now put it into the advanced basic writing group. Right, you have to
Okay.
be in this group to get to it. So there are
Mhm.
just two others. There's an open letter contest judge, and there's a text analyzer. Text analyzer was actually created by a student, Ashna, and the open letter contest judge was written by Jill. So, and probably we should indicate that somewhere. So I'm talking too much already. Any thoughts, questions? what we're doing here?
Sure. So
Go ahead.
I guess my question would be just like the different types of students and tasks that I would have coming into this, and some that I'm anticipating with some colleagues. So with
Good.
the AI squad, let's say I wrote rhetorical analysis essay for my AP language and comp class, and I want to know if my evidence is strong. Is there like a AI squad that I would turn to that you can think of for that scenario?
Yeah, the voice and audience would work well with it.
Okay. All right. So let's say.
But how would you? That begs the question, though, that I know that you don't, right? I mean, that is one of our issues here. Like, how would you know that? How would the students know that? How would the other teacher you're working with know that?
Yeah, I guess my question right now is like, just in general, are you seeing like different uses? So, for example, let's say I'm a peer tutor, and students coming in with like an assignment that another teacher wrote, a essay about a theme in a work of literature.
Came into a writing.
Is there something that would support someone who wants to help, because Brian's starting a, writing center with peer tutors.
Oh, I'm sorry, came into a writing. Go ahead. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
So like, would there be an AI squad member that we'd say like, okay, this peer tutor could turn to this AI squad for like suggestions on how to help this student writer appear? I don't know. So that would be another use, and then let's say my third and final use for now is like, let's say I'm writing for my school's journalism program, and I would just need some help with like my lead paragraph.
Right. So I'm trying to think of all three cases, but they are different genres, right?
Right. That's my point. Yeah.
So my answer, and I have tested this and tried to go back and forth, and we've created there is in the news one, a lead writer that helps you write the first paragraph. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess I was just wondering about the AI squad, if there was 5 that kids could go to right away, would they find help?
What I was going to say is that if you are in a journalism class, using that specific one that's designed for that is better. However, I haven't seen that much difference between what the improv teammate does than what that one does.
Great.
Yeah. This really begs the question in that if it's almost like to the extent some of the AIs will overlap, as you're saying, Paul, the improv teammate may be a very effective lead generator just by virtue of the brainstorm that's required to kick off a thinking process.
And it depends on how you prompt it, how you talk to it. Yeah.
But it does feel, and even Chris, hearing you narrate what your 3 use cases are, which are 3, every instructor is going to be able to reel off 3 scenarios for 3 different learners. It's a beautiful example of differentiation. And to the extent that as a guide, it could be a student author like Grace, it could be a teacher like Jill or you and Chris. But to the extent that you guys understand what your objectives are going to be in terms of deliverables or work products or, customizing a prompt for that output feels more rewarding than trying to sort of drag and drop or pick one or sort of build a bridge to an improv teammate. Could be a lead generator. Let's try it. I mean, that's a pretty practical response, but it seems to be missing some of the benefits of the AI's customization. Now, that might be more challenging might be challenging to implement that at some kind of scale. But Paul, do you see where I'm going with this? if you're an educator or a writer trying to custom design your output or the supports you're going to use for your work process, either you 5 squad people fit your buckets and you understand where you're going to apply them, or you're going to be writing your own squad.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with the 5 squad members. It's just a question of having that be the governing theme that you use to introduce your work.
Yeah, because the other thing that I think about is that sometimes when students have too many choices of writing tutors, that doesn't help either, you know.
That's
so
right.
It's like, is there a gradual release of more tutors or something as they go?
Yeah. Or there's, or there's a this gets back to my curricular gene, which is keeping everyone on a shared track until they can generate enough content to self-direct and then pick up additional pieces. So if an assignment is building over the course of a 6-week or 2-month period, the work product and the writing is going to get more complex, and it's going to get more specific in its needs, and the writing partners would become more specific as well. So it gets back to the order of operations that an instructor uses or a writer uses to guide his or her thinking process or the class's work. I'm trying to walk a line here between a scripted set of writing partners, which works very well, I think, for moving people through a common set of activities versus sort of independently branching off and refining. And Paul, you've worked at this back and forth and back and forth. I'm not describing anything new.
It's helpful though. Keep in mind that you're advising me for how I'm going to go into Jill's classroom and maybe demonstrate some of this to to teachers who are new to it, right?
Sure.
As well.
So
one answer I think we want to get comfortable with, and sorry, I'm putting up something that and I have a question about, but and I could spell revising correctly, but so I don't have to revise it. Here's the one question I have is if what I'm putting up now helps or not. Does it help to see these as, okay, the student comes into the writing center. You're just starting your process. Let's use 1 or 2 because those are brainstorming ones, right? But if you've started writing something already, you have a first draft, let's use the improv teaming. You want help on the introduction, let's use the improv teaming. Right? If you've gone for some time and you're ready to think about adding to it, you could revise and use the background knowledge. And then once and I see that I have to edit something there, but once you see that you're ready, you're getting toward the end of the process, you can use the voice and audience coach, which will give you really good. Now, having said that, all of these could be used everywhere. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
But does that help the tutor and our making clear how this works? Or do you have another suggestion?
I think initially I thought that seemed helpful because that a lot of people understand the writing process, as we've learned about it through the years. So that, that at least helps. Yeah.
And of course, any presentation of it is simplifying it. Bonnie, Are you here?
I think I am. Am I here? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
You are here, Bonnie. Sure can.
Hey, everybody.
So,
hi, Bonnie.
So let me try. And so, hi, Bonnie. How are you?
Another day in the neighborhood.
Bonnie, we are trying to parse out, and you have as much experience about this as anybody, parse out how to figure out how to make clear to students how to use these and have ones that are familiar, yet they do enough, and then give a slow release to something else. And the specific project we're working on, and if I could,
You're talking about the AI squad, how they can
yes.
use that. Oh, okay. Mhm. Well, how
And
about I'm starting to know some of these names of certain writing partners by heart, which is like, oh my goodness.
like
You
which ones?
just try. Well, I'll say try background knowledge, teaming,
Uh-huh.
and then if I'm in journalism, look for headline hero. Where is public conversation? What's that voice in public voice coach? And then,
Uh-huh.
but right now, because of the Mercy Douglas Hospital work, who's your mentor? Do you understand the words? So vocabulary, tutor, and word lookout. And I tell them try both of those so that they can see the differences in what those writing partners do. So I'm always shouting out writing partners. And what I did the other day, I'm starting to read and annotate right alongside the students so that they can see how I use
Yep.
writing partners and questions that I have. And then I'm replying to some of them too at the same time during class time. Um, so
So
I
Bonnie,
read the
that
book 4 times.
I so I want to sit here and listen to and learn from what you're doing.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
Mhm.
we need some help to think about how to introduce this system to 4 high school teachers, 2 of them who hate AI, but they're
Mhm.
going to come to a workshop and say, okay, show me how this works, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And Chris just gave some other scenarios, but
But I would
so
give them, I
what
think
you said is helpful.
but I
That
wouldn't
you
ask them to write first. I'd ask them to read, annotate, and then write. It has to be a 3-step process. And even I just did a journal with the students. I don't know if you didn't see it because I didn't have it for for that. I don't have it
it's
on
not
that.
on writing partners yet.
No, it's not on writing partners. We use Canvas, everybody.
Mhm.
So they use Canvas, and I had like a medical journal for them. And the sentence was medical racism impacts the health of marginalized communities in the United States. And I said, considering the above statement in your reading thus far about Henrietta Lacks, write for 10 minutes and share your thoughts. Very interesting what students came. I could tell just by their responses who had done reading and who didn't uh, in the text, and who had annotated and who didn't, and who was using their partners. But Paul, you can see it all because I made sure you're in all my Canvas classes. So anytime you ever want to take a peek, you can.
Yeah,
Uh,
but so
so
that's a really so
Mhm,
here's maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's something similar to what you just described,
mhm.
and I don't know how to communicate this to a new teacher who we don't know, but help me here.
But
Chris, you've had your kids write summaries of articles they're reading, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Each week.
Mhm. and
So
yeah, that's right.
there are
Do
these
a summary.
little chunks of thinking that they do.
Yeah. And I have,
And
when I tell them to write a summary, I say it has to be your thoughts, questions, new learning. That's what a summary pertains
and
to for me, because I don't want the blow by blow. You say summary to children, they think you want blow by blow what they just
yeah,
read.
yeah. And then and I just want to bring in here's Ashna. She's now a 10th grader, and we'll say really quickly that she tried to present AI and got sort of shut down. And I'm going to go into this school and try to work with her again.
How she
But
get that cute font? I'm into
I don't know. Oh, because she copied and pasted. So they collect their journals. You'll see this is a while ago,
Mhm.
but if you see the date, but they collect their journals in docs, and then at some point they select everything, and which in your case is in Canvas, right?
Mm-hmm.
and they paste everything into one document, right? And you can see
Mm-hmm.
it's all sorts of things that
Yeah.
she has collected here.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of so I'm trying to make clear what the first one does, and was just talking with Andrea or watching her talk to her teachers, and she said that one of the things she is fascinated by with writing partners is its ability to take all of these notes and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and make sense of it for students.
Yep.
But
Yep.
is that a hard thing to explain to somebody or not? That's what
Well,
what
they
I'm
have
not
to
sure.
see it to know what's happening. Is it explainable though? It is in a way. What do you all think? Because I'm thinking about when the students made all those comments in those debates, three different
Mhm.
debates, and then
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
they were able to do, one writing piece based upon what the writing partners had picked up for them, and they were able to stay in one lane and even find what was most important to them through their comments in three different debates.
So when I and we are trying to figure out a sales pitch here as much as anything, right?
No problem.
Yeah. So when I scroll over Theme Finder, um, what the summary I wrote is I find themes, questions, wicked problems, or roots and branches, to some of Jill's language, or whatever you ask me to identify in your notes.
Mhm. So one thing about me is I always tell the young people you cannot define a word with the word. So for you to define that first by saying find themes, and it's called Theme Finder. Wow.
Okay.
I mean, what other way can you define that? And
That's
then
fine. Yeah.
I don't. Is it really brainstorming?
I actually think it is. It's early in the process. I haven't started writing anything. I mean, I have written. Have all those notes, right? But I'm not writing this part of the project yet. It's the beginning of the process.
Okay.
I think. Although I'm happy to hear you suggest something different. What do you think it is?
Well,
Yeah,
I don't want to complicate things,
let's
but
do it. Yeah.
if I've not begun my writing process yet, and yet I've got a collection of documents that I'm going to use Theme Finder for as the first squad in a sequence.
Mm-hmm.
There was an assignment, or I had an intent that got me my document that I'm going to use. And that didn't just happen in thin air. That happened according to some prompt, guidelines, objectives. Gathering enough material to make Theme Finder useful is a writing activity.
Yep.
And if that's sort of pre-work, and it's before you even get to a writing partner experience, you're doing pre-work, and that's a whole commitment of seat time and coaching and feedback and reflection and work product generation. And then you've got a document that you can then bring to Theme Finder. So I'm curious what's going to get me my material that Theme Finder is going to take apart. And if so, there's a name that's got to have a name to it. I don't mean to complicate things a little bit, but in a vacuum, if I don't have any thinking, if I've not done any thinking and I'm coming to the blank page, I either have a journal full of stuff that's kind of on topic and I'm looking for some through lines and some common questions to elevate, or I'm starting from scratch and I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm looking for that. Again, I'm back to the order of operations. Theme Finder seems to apply itself to some body of work that's been created according to some rules, and it can it can create an output that's refined from there. So is that a writing assignment to get yourself to Theme Finder?
I think it is. Yeah. And it's different in each case that we have here.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
Jill's,
So it's kind of,
yeah.
yeah. So it has to do with like, let's do some free write, let's do some research, let's ask some, some open-ended questions. Let's just kind of make our way into our understanding or figure out where our questions are going with this topic. It's a prompting, exploratory stage in a writing or thinking process. So it seems like there's a teachable moment there, or two or three.
And would it be useful to have a writing partner that asks for that? I don't know.
Yes.
Or do you just depend on the teacher to do that? That's
I think it's a good idea because some young people and even some adults cannot find overarching ideas, like they don't know the big picture that's being spoken within the words and between the lines. And so it helps people. It helps
yeah,
them.
but the question, so let's look at, I hear you, but Ashna was given the assignment, go into your journal and copy 3 journals, right?
So that she's got it. So Ashna has a journal.
Yep, she has a journal.
Or Bonnie's kids have summary statements that they're doing. There's some baseline body of work that they're creating according to some intent. And if that's happening according to whatever rules they are, however Bonnie sets it up,
or Chris
Jill
has
does
summaries at the end of every week. Yep.
Yeah. If that's the pre-work, so to speak, then take my question off the table. You arrive at this squad and Theme Finder with that in hand, which I think is what you were saying. And I was just
I see.
Trying.
No, but you can approach it from. I think you were on target too, David, because you approach different readings, different purposes of writing. All these purposes that we have.
Yeah.
So I like hearing it from a different perspective than what my thinking is, so that I have something new to go on, or different. Not necessarily new, but different.
Right. When I pull up Theme Finder and I'm trying to figure out. When I pull up Theme Finder, it says in the left panel, cut and paste any collection of notes, transcripts, annotations, journal entries, reflections, meeting notes, anything. And I will look for themes, questions, wicked problems. Right?
And that goes in the second box, the question or statement, or the third box?
What's the it?
When the text,
stuff,
all the text that you cut and paste in.
It actually goes in. No, it doesn't go here at all, which is confusing, and I get it. But we're not getting beyond the first one. I think the other ones are either. Chris Sloan.
Yeah.
You have your summaries, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would there? I mean, do we want an AI coach that would help students find or collect those summaries together, or is that just something a teacher needs to learn to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having I had copy a Google Doc that I set up initially that said each week, do these things in this Google Doc. So for mine, it would be pretty easy to cut and paste everything from the Google Doc into comment, into a document, and then just use the Theme Finder to help them try to make sense of all their stuff. Yeah, I'm also thinking, like, what if I'm just starting something and I just do a brain dump, like
brain
at the
dump
beginning,
would work,
at the process of it, like,
or
I
the
had
10 self-10-rolled questions would work.
Right. Yeah. So I had them do that stuff. And as I look at the Theme Finder description, I think it would help with that too.
Yeah.
Should we ask the students to say what they think the theme could be and then have the partners build up on that? Because I think such an important part of learning is first sending your work out there and then receiving feedback on your work, so you know where your weak spots are.
Mm.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Grace, part of the answer back to that though is that the theme finder finds a bunch of themes, right? And you still have a lot of agency in deciding if you agree with that or not. But I like the suggestion though. Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
too. I do too.
I could see how that could be better, because when we find themes, I think we settle on one vein of thought, but having multiple could probably expand your view. Like, oh, I didn't know.
So,
Which I like that. Thank you, Grace. I like that. And I always tell my students that, because I grew up in the day of the way the teacher taught it, the way the teacher was taught the literature. That's the way you had to think about it. And it was usually only one friggin' way to think about it. And I do not teach like that at all. And I really try to stay away from that classic style of thinking about themes and thinking about the ideas that come up for us when we read. Because I've found that it's a lot has to do with life experiences too, as to what young people get from the reading, but they usually get back to some of that classic stuff. But I try to let them know it's so much. I like what she said. I like what you said,
I do
Grace.
too. So, Grace,
Thank you.
go ahead, Grace. Did you want to say something more?
Bonnie saying that about how theme is so objective from your own life experiences makes me wonder if we could have AI explain why it chose what themes it did. So then we can look at that and we can see, like, okay, how does that compare with my process for selecting themes?
So it does that, by the way. It says
Okay, that's great.
here are 5 themes, and the reason we think these 5 themes is because of this, of what you wrote in your journal. You wrote this sentence.
Okay,
It quotes from the journal and kind of says it.
that's
Now,
great.
and you know what? I don't think we want a system that is only teacher or only AI, right? So but I don't know how to explain that to folks. So that's what I'm struggling with a little bit, right? So,
But it's the duality of teaching. It's like a partner in and of itself for the teacher. And gone are the days. I think when I was in middle school, everything were 2 teachers. You had 2 teachers for this and 2 but gone are those days.
all right.
I had a question about Paul.
Good.
Not that it has to be lockstep, but could someone coming to writing partners for the first time conceivably lead students through different genres of writing just by doing theme finder first, and then text to image, and then improv, and then background knowledge, and then voice and audience? I think that's possible in the kinds of things I'm thinking of. Because if I'm new, I see 1 through 5, part of me, and I look at the brainstorming, composing, revising, editing, it does, we know it's not lockstep, but it does suggest kind of a flow that I think could work too. Not all the time, but I feel like it could take someone through a sequence and get to some kind of end result that's worthwhile.
Let me ask this: is the theme finder actually? I mean,
It's not.
I think the goal of the. Go
Is
ahead, what?
theme finder working like an outlining tool then?
In a sense, yeah. So here's what I was going to say is that as I listen to you talk and imagine the 3 of you, you're Jill, Chris, and Bonnie, you're like advanced teachers in this work. And so you can figure out how to use Theme Finder. What we want in the squad are things that tutor who isn't an advanced teacher can use, right? So maybe Theme Finder is inappropriate to have as a squad member. Is that
Maybe so.
a thought?
Because what's the outlining? I mean, what does the outlining tool do? We have that.
It uses outline formats, whereas the Theme Finder just identifies 5 things for you, 5 questions that you might approach.
So
It's more of a brainstorming tool. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a question. Do we
Sure.
have a bot that just discusses writing with you, like the theme or something? The same
Say
way
that
you
again.
discuss. Is there a bot that just discusses a piece of writing with you? Like,
Yeah,
You might-
the improv teammate does that.
Mhm.
that's great. Sorry, I missed a lot of the meeting because it was
No.
really loud.
You're asking really good questions. Please don't apologize. Yeah.
Okay.
So Grace, and by the way, I think it's a good chance I'm coming to your school on Wednesday. So
Right.
hopefully we'll be able to meet. But the key question to all of this for me is, how can we get you, like, you need to be able to ask that question, and somebody needs to be able, or it needs to be obvious that, yeah, the improv teammate does that, right? It'll just sit there and it'll help you write. It'll tell you, give you ideas for the next paragraph, right? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah. What if we had a bot that refers you to other bots?
Mm. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shucky ducky.
Yeah. So it would refer you based on what?
What you're trying to do and what the bots can do.
That's
I don't know.
powerful. That's
I think
powerful, Grace.
we could create a graph or something. I don't know.
A what?
A graph.
A graph.
Yeah.
What would the
I don't
graph
know.
look
Think
like?
about it. Maybe one axis would be, or I don't know, graphic organizer.
Mm-hmm. But see,
Yeah, I don't know.
how about you saying it, Grace? Come on, talk more about it, because you're on to something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she went out again. Dang nabbit. Here she comes.
By accident.
No problem.
Saying,
Grace, and the axis. What would be on one, the x-axis and the y-axis? What would be on it?
I think one would definitely be your purpose. The other maybe could be how advanced you are in
Or
writing
advanced as a writer, or advanced in the project?
as a writer. Or maybe
As a writer.
surface level to more deeper thematic elements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to think about that.
Can you see the screen? I'll just describe it
Yeah,
as you
you
can.
see it. And how about for me,
No,
Grace,
I mean,
thinking from a
Grace,
teaching lens, um, that one axis talks about the different pedagogical strategies or the goals of the teaching, and the other shows which writing partner correlates with that strategy, with that teaching strategy, or that purpose, the purpose of the lesson, or the goal, or something like that.
That sounds really great. Yeah, I like the idea a lot because AI Partners really is just a teacher or trying to teach kids.
So it reminds me, Aditya, are you in debate also, Grace? I noticed a couple.
Yeah, I'm in debate.
Okay. Do you know Aditya?
No,
He's
I don't
now
think
a
so.
9th grader. Okay. Anyway, so he suggested at one point, he called it a concierge, right?
Mm.
I don't know if you remember this, but it put me in mind. And if you look at this, so we have these 5 different not much different than the squad in some way, like different approaches, different in a process. And so what the teacher coach picker does is it looks at your text and it says, hey, it looks like you're up to the productive stage. Use this coach, right? So sure, we could try to think about that for the squad. Is that an idea we're having?
Yeah. And as a beginning, Paul, because then like the why, it takes them directly to the what and the why.
All right. Can
They
somebody
use that
summarize?
for a long time. Chris or Dave, have you all ever used that one? I haven't used that in a long time.
Which one?
The teacher
The one
coach.
I'm showing? No. And so these things kind of fall off, and I get that. But the idea here is it would be for a teacher who's keeping a journal and over time and so forth.
But it doesn't have to be, Paul, because I can see how students can use that where they see the direction of what it is they're doing and where they're going in the work that they're doing. Because sometimes they ask teachers just the simple questions. It's like, why can't you find that answer on your own?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I was reading through the prompt and there's different things that are going on in there. And it's almost like, it strikes me as a lot of this writing is inquiry based. And so is Theme Finder better thought of as like inquiry helper or something, I
We've
do a
had
brain.
we've had a dozen names for it, but yes.
Well, I don't mean just the name change. I mean,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
That what we're talking about is probably at the very beginning of things where kids are like, I don't even know what I'm going to write about, and some of what I see in the Theme Finder is approaching that, it is really helping people just at the very beginning stages of like, I have no idea what to write about. I think we've all read those journal prompts where I've got nothing. And so you just keep brain dumping and the Theme Finder seems like some of that stuff in there is helping people find, it says, I forget all the things it talks about. It talks about, I'll help you with themes, questions, wicked problems, roots or branches. It's at that point, at least the first part where it's talking about, I'll help you just get your act together.
It could be called a getting started.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does more than help people find themes.
Yeah.
So I think a getting started thing seems like a good thing to have as number one there. Where I'm thinking of when my students start something, they generally oftentimes don't have a really clear idea of what it is they're thinking and they just start writing.
Yes.
Again, it comes back, it's like a jump start. It's like a jump start coach. It also presumes that one is going to be building up a certain amount of text that's going to be able to capture some possible directions. I can remember being a student and teaching students for whom, when that prompt was sort of put to me, I kind of blanked. And, I was just sort of asking, I don't know. But when I had guidance and I had a prompt in mind of some type or a subject I was working towards, I had questions I could go ask. I got things I could begin to fill in, even if they're rhetorically only asking questions. I'm not sure about X.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think about Y, but I really don't know much about Y. And then, you just begin to build up subject matter inside your questions. But it presumes that you're asking enough questions to give the bot enough material to assemble something. The challenge and the problem with these tools is that they just free associate any kind of semantic sense with whatever's in front of them. And if it's really minimal, you get a pretty minimal response. But it can be tuned to be highly directed but the more that's there, the better.
Mhm.
I keep being struck by, Bonnie, you're the point that you've got students summarizing, and Chris, you've got people keeping journals, which seem perfectly tuned to sort of the jumping off spot where you're going to take material, take your insights, take your beginning inquiry questions, and begin to push on certain ones that are inspiring to you.
Mhm.
And to the extent the bot can kind of reinforce that curiosity and lay some threads out, that's really the next goal. And it feels very much sort of in the first quadrant, first quarter of the writing process. So jump starting, kick starting, theme finding, that feels like an essential piece of that puzzle. But again, it's about pre-work, it feels like.
Mm.
And having that as a practice, which is already checking a lot of boxes to think that you're going to be writing with some regularity against a subject that you are interested in, even if it's only to come up with your questions. But having that as a ritual and a routine opens the door to this whole process very productively. Lacking that routine, I think, is a challenge, and that has to do with classroom management and modeling and the other things that peers and kids can do together.
So if you, let's say my first day of class, I write 2 sentences.
Yeah.
And then I do add document, and I add a little bit more of my thinking. Paul, so this is probably a how it works question, but does a writing partner look at all of the stuff in that thing if I add documents, or is it just looking at the document that I added recently?
It's looking at everything.
Okay.
If you go, yeah, or it's looking at one paragraph. It's either everything or one paragraph.
So yeah, so multiple documents if they're all in the same document. Yeah. Well, I think kind of the getting started tutor right up top would be useful for a lot of people just coming to the site.
This has all been really helpful. I toward the beginning of this conversation, and I'm trying to get us out of here, but toward the beginning of the conversation, I think we kind of made clear, or for me it is, that if we can get people to understand the improv and the voice audience and the background knowledge one do bigger things than we imagine,
Yes.
that would be useful. So those 3 kind of work for me in that way. Bonnie, I wanted to ask you, because you were like a great salesperson at NCTE, and you called me up and said, I wasn't there. You called me up and said, hey, the text to image prompt writer isn't available. And so we made it a squad at that point. Can you talk about how introducing a new teacher or a new student to the system using text image prompt writer is useful, or a student to start writing?
Because a picture, I think I started out by saying a picture is reads almost 1,000 words, something like that, whatever the cliche is. So I told people to just write about themselves or something that interests them. I forgot what I said, Paul. That's the thing. That's the bad thing with me, because
No, that's what that was helpful.
Yeah, and then they wrote it down, and then I told them to use text to image prompt writer, but we're using it differently now than we did at NCTE.
But
So
just it's easier to include now. But
yes, so that they could start there, and then they're like, oh, everyone was so excited that they got an image made from their few words that they wrote, and it could have been 2 or 3 sentences. And some of them really got gorgeous images from their words.
Right.
So that's a start for a sales pitch.
I think so. I mean, it's not only sales pitch, but yeah, we can call it that. it's also like what gets a writer going,
Excited.
right? Yeah.
Because then they see other things in the image based upon their writing. And that's where themes come in, voice and audience comes in. Who am I creating this for? And don't writers always think about that?
Mhm.
Who is this? Who is my audience?
All right. All right. So out of this, I'm going to mess around with that first one a little bit. Maybe
Okay.
simplify, maybe think about it. And
But
great.
Paul, how about
Yes.
with my? I have to say this before because David kept saying the jumpstart or Chris, and I was thinking about when I don't do Cornell notes. I do window box notes with students, and one of the boxes is to really try to pick out what jumps off the page for you. What jumps off the page for the reader?
That's when they're annotating, or when is that?
Yes, but how about I haven't really said it using writing partners, but now I'm getting ready to say it again because what jumps off the page are the themes,
Mhm.
the jumpers. Um, so that's just very interesting that David used that term.
Hmm.
And so
Cool.
the children get crazy when I say what the jump off is, because you know what that is in slang when you're jumping off with somebody.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have to teach you someday. Grace is on here. She's in ninth grade, eighth grade, something. When I talk like
You
that,
got
I'm
to be
with
careful.
seniors. Yeah.
I just wanted to show people really fast, but Bonnie, you started this conversation with Dr. Dickens. I
Dickens.
always say it.
Did you
So,
see it? It's a lot.
so Bonnie sent away we'll end with this, right? Bonnie sent away, and Barrett helped her find 2 videos that are oral histories of her mentor, right? And I helped her get transcripts of those oral histories, and then put those in her mentor. So now that writing partner is using that text to talk back to Bonnie. So Bonnie now has started some. Oh, you've gone deeper here.
Yes.
Started some conversations about her own life with this doctor from who born you, right?
Mhm.
So pretty fascinating stuff you're doing.
And the children said they said I have to come up with a better sentence than the first person who touched me. They said, "Oh no, that doesn't sound right." I said, "Well, can you create a sentence for me so I can have something better to say?"
I wrote this for you. The first person to lay hands on me.
And I
Is
like
right?
that. Hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, so Bonnie writes that question, and then Dr. Helen Dickens,
Dickens.
the simulator, comes back and says, "Hey, that's amazing. Let's talk." And then you have this possible ongoing conversation. How to introduce this to students is an interesting question, but there we are.
But see now something like that, it has to be modeled. You have to
Mhm.
model it for students. That's why I'm going in reading with them when we're
Mhm.
in class so that they can see how.
Right.
And it's causing them to read more. We're elevating reading levels because
I'm
when I look
well
at a
aware of that.
student's thing that says they're a fifth grade level reader, I'm like, that's a lie. That's a lie. They're not a fifth grade level reader because what they have to do in my class is so far beyond a fifth grade level. Please.
Got to say though, when I described to Sam's principal that you were doing the Immoral Life of Henrietta Lacks, he was like, "Whoa, what grade is that in?" Right? So he was. It's a not an easy book.
It's not, and our district
Chris, I
has
know we got
10th
to go.
graders. For
I
10th grade,
know.
I'm like, it's not a 10th grade book. Not at all.
Anyway,
But that's where they have it for 10th grade, fourth quarter. So
yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No. It's fine. It's all good. Thank you for spending the extra time here. Grace, great suggestions. Let's keep talking.
I like that X and Y axis. I like
I
it's
do too.
because Paul, it's easy for us to look
I
at.
wrote it down. Yeah.
You did? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really easy to see, like, okay, what should I use for what strategies?
Thanks. It's so great to be able to be here and listen to all this information and absorb.
Mhm.
You do much more than observe. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes.
So
And I like that graphic. You know what? Alden made a graphic for you for Youth Voices. Keep forgetting.
Oh, really?
He's the
What is
only
that?
one that did something. Even and that was something I said out loud. I didn't put it in writing. Who would like to participate? I said it in every class in Alden.
What's that a graphic of? I don't.
Something for
Did
Youth
you?
Voices. Yeah, he showed it to me, but I forget.
Oh, we were looking for a graphic for the
Yeah.
title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I didn't see it, so I'll look for it.
Yeah,
All right.
I have to. I don't even know if he posted it up or anything yet. Okay, great time. That's
Talk
why
to y'all.
it's
Thank
you
you.
all
You
now.
guys.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Night, night.
Hey, Paul, I got a question for you.